Hi, lovely booktubers. I'm Debs. Welcome back to my channel, Raina Read Stuff. I am here in the book shack. It's a nice sunny afternoon, bit cold, but it's a nice sunny afternoon. It's Saturday. I'm going to do my weekly wrap up of the Occult Detective October books. For those who don't know, Occult Detective October has been set up by MJ at Reading This Life. This is its second year. I'm delighted to be one of the co-hosts this year. I'll put all the information for it down below. This is week 2. Oh, knocking the camera, sorry. This is week 2, and for this week we were have been reading books by authors that have been written post 1960. So I had a variety of these. Let's start with me being an idiot, because, well, I'm sort of good at that. Anyway, last year I read the first of these books. I read this one, Beyond the Grave. It's by R.W. Wallace. I really enjoyed it. So I got books 2, 3, and 4 in the series to read this year. And thinking I was reading book 2, I actually read book 4, which is called Piercing the Veil. No, that one. Now, I'm going to claim it's because of the order that they were set up, that they sort of appeared on my e-reader. But I actually read Piercing the Veil thinking this is the sort of series that you really need to have read in order. I'm saying to myself as I'm reading book 4, having not read books 2 or 3. I think I will maintain that you probably need to at least have read the first one, because it explains the backstory. What we have here is a scenario in France where a female police captain has been relocated from Paris to Toulouse to investigate some cold cases that the authorities think may have been linked, and they are old cases going back as far as 30 odd years. And she uncovers a grave where the gravestone simply says Clotilde and the year of death. She's exhuming the body because it's a woman who was believed to have, well, the authorities said she'd committed suicide. But there are a number of these young women who are alleged to have committed suicide that were actually murdered. So her body is exhumed, and it does in fact transpire that she was drugged, raped, and murdered. What they don't expect, though, is to find another body in her grave. And another body has been dumped on top of it reasonably soon after she was buried. So this turns out to be the body of the police officer who judged her death to be suicide because he was coerced into it. He then has a change of heart and is killed for that, and his body is dumped on top of her grave. So both bodies are exhumed, both bodies are carted off to the mortuary. What the police don't realise at the time is both bodies have ghosts attached to them, and these ghosts are physically linked to their earthly remains. So when the bodies are carted off to the mortuary, the ghosts go with them. Now, the ghosts have had 30 years to try and figure out what's happened to them, and they're still not sure. But they don't want to lose the opportunity to discover more from this investigation. And so psychically, they suggest to the police officer that she takes a finger bone from each of them. And because she has a bone in her possession, they can, as ghosts, choose to be with either their full skeleton or with the bones she's carrying with them. So they accompany her and they start investigating this case. Now, having read Beyond the Grave last year, I was quite upset that it didn't actually. It came to a conclusion. It was good and it came to a conclusion, but it didn't solve the whole case. Then I discover there are three more books in this series. I did mean to read them in order. I failed. Reading book 4, I kept thinking, oh, I don't remember that happening. And that's probably why, because it's happened in book 2 or book 3. So I'm not going to tell you very much more about the story of this because I've read them in completely the wrong order. I'm now reading Unveiling the Past. I am just over halfway through that. Probably get that finished this weekend. Then I'm going to move on to the next one, which is called Beneath the Surface. I will tell you, I'm still not convinced this series is at an end. So I am expecting at some point there to be a book 5. But I'm really enjoying them. Next week is the diverse character or diverse author prompt. Now, our detective in this series, who is called Emmeline Etienne, is gay, and she has a partner who is her neighbour, Amira, and she also has 2 ghosts attached to her, as I've said, which has got to be pretty diverse, really. And her partner, Malik, is of Moroccan origin. So even if I am reading these books next week, still counts. I'm sticking to that. The other one I'm midway through, and also counts both for this week and for next week, is the next in the Ben Aaronovitch Rivers of London series. This one's called Foxglove Summer. I'm about a quarter of the way into this. I think this series is wonderful. Again, now, when was this published? This one's 2014. This is number 5 in the series. I think I've previously read 4 and 2 novellas. Does it tell me? No, I'm lying to you. This is number 4 in the series. I have another 2. These also count A as modern occult detective stories, but B as ones which feature characters who are diverse. Our hero in this book, PC Peter Grant, he is a member of a very small police department that deals with crimes that are involving the occult. He is of African descendancy. He is second generation, and also his current partner is gay. All of his books have featured a diverse character in some way. And I've got another couple to go, which I'd quite like to get through next week as well. So I've got 2.5 of this series to read and 1.5 of the other series to read. Now, there are 2 other things that I've read this week that were very kindly sent to me by Dave Brzezinski, and he is one of the joint editors of Occult Detective Magazine, and I have thoroughly enjoyed this. This is issue number 10, which came out in the summer of last year, and it is absolutely jam full of occult detective stuff. So there are a number of short stories, one novella. There's an article which is really interesting, actually. What was that called? The occult detective genre's potential for radical representation and social justice. And this is by Maria de Blasi. Let me find it. And I thought this was really interesting. And it talks about the genres, how the genre has expanded since it first reared its head in Victorian times. But also about how most of the characters in there were privileged in some way, certainly most of the detectives. So it portrayed privilege in the sense of the good guys, but villainized what she calls his otherness. It's a really interesting article. So in addition to the stories in here, there are book reviews, there were games reviews in here. There is something in here called Cold Cases, the Satan Sleuth series, which has been written by our very own MJ. There's a bit about the authors in here. There's all sorts of things. The stories are really varied and really good. It starts off with a story by a guy called Joe Talon. Something old, borrowed, blue and cursed. And this appears to be, I mean, you can read it as a standalone, obviously, but it comes after the 6th book. I haven't read any of the others. In his Lorne Turner series. And Lorne Turner is quite a complicated character. He is a army veteran suffering from serious PTSD, but also is extra sensitive to the supernatural. And this is about him getting married, having a really strange reaction to a necklace that his wife is wearing during the ceremony that her mother has given her, claiming it to be a family heirloom. Whereas in fact it turns out to have come from another family, and there is a supernatural element in this necklace. And so the newlywed couple and their vicar, which sounds strange, but their vicar is actually Lorne's best friend, go off to investigate and find out what's wrong with it. Another one I really liked was actually the next one. It's called The Secret of the Lark, and it's by Mike Adamson. And he writes as a woman living in the Fens, Norfolk, Cambridgeshire. And this is a story about... It is a haunting. And there's a mystery. It involves Saxons and an artist. The artist is our protagonist. But this is great. Really enjoyed that one. I also really enjoyed... Probably just easier to look in the index. I enjoyed the novella, The Nature of Panic by Simon Avery. And Leviathan by John Paul Fitch. That was great. That was a scoutmaster who was sacrificing his scouts. It sounds as if it was silly, but it wasn't silly at all. It was really good. And that's got some great illustrations by someone calling themselves Mutatis. I showed these on the one last week. I really love those. That's the Scoutmaster one. And these are of varying length as well. Look, he doesn't look quite so good there. There's some nice illustrations in a lot of these, actually. These ones completely different, but these are by a Finnish artist called Brokey, and these feature in a story called In Good Spirits, in as in INN, which is written by Nancy Hansen. I love The Butcher of Hemming Street as well, which was written by Nachingti Kasa. Anyway, for anyone investigating or trying to read more occult detectives, you really cannot go wrong with one of these. They're brilliant. Dave also sent me a number of other books, including this one, The Angry Dead by Rosemary Pardoe. And I decided to read this one first because this is also an Occult Detective Magazine special edition. I don't think he would have had any idea just how appropriate this book is for me personally. I have an absolute fascination with churches and have spent many a happy hour wandering around them, poking in nooks and crevices and looking at various things. This book is a book of interconnected short stories, the connection being that the main character is the same. They were written initially mainly in the 80s, but they've all been updated for this book. And they feature an artist who specializes in renovation of works of art in churches. Now, I loved these, absolutely loved these, and I loved them for two reasons. They're based in an area in the UK around Cambridge and Essex that I know very well because I used to work in both of those places. The Essex Chronicle and the Cambridge Evening News were two of the papers that I was group production editor of for years. The other thing is, look at these illustrations. Who did these? I should have checked. Who did these? Bear with me. Autumn Barlow. Each of the stories features one of these. These are grotesques. They're not gargoyles. Gargoyles are functional. Gargoyles are part of a water drainage scheme. Grotesques, like these, are just things that are ornamental. You often find them on churches. Sometimes they can be people. Sometimes they can be animals. I'm particularly fond of green men, and one who is the subject of the final second to last story in this book, Sheila Nagig. Possibly a symbol of fertility. It's an odd thing to have on a church. Quite often, she's holding her genitals, which you think is completely inappropriate. But I'd travel miles and miles and miles to see one of these on a church, or a green man, or the mooning men. And if you don't know what mooning men are, those are these are gargoyles. Things like this. This is a man's backside and his genitals. And it is a gargoyle. And guess where the water comes through? Anyway, suffice to say that I absolutely loved these. The stories are supernatural, ghostly. Our protagonist doesn't... She finds a solution. She finds out what's going on. This isn't a detective in the normal sense of the word, but they are occult detective stories, and they're brilliant, and I loved them. So thank you, Dave, for both of those. Now, what I have next from him that are occult detectives: Waking Up Dead and The Conspiracy of the Ravens. These are both Four Horsemen publications that he sent me. I've sort of started that one. I haven't started that one, but I'll sort them through the rest of Occult Detective October. So that has been my Occult Detective reading. I'm a bit annoyed that I read the fourth book in the series when I hadn't read books 2 and 3, but I am going to make up for that now. I've got several Ben Aaronovitch books to go through, and the 2 that Dave very kindly sent me. What have you been reading? Let me know. I'm loving Occult Detective October. And it's been so varied so far. You'd think a specific subgenre like that, there would be less to choose from, but there's so much out there. So if you fancy giving it a go, just do a search for them. Loads are available free on Project Gutenberg. You can find others if you're subscribed to things like BookBub or Kindle Unlimited or Audible. Or they're not all scary. There's some quite cozy ones. Some are scary, or try to be, but they're really good fun. Anyway, thank you for popping by. I'll do another Occult Detective wrap up next Saturday. Tomorrow I'm going to do my normal weekly reading wrap-up that doesn't include any Occult Detective or any Victober. So if you fancy popping by again tomorrow, it'd be lovely to see you. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you've been reading. Like and subscribe if you'd like to. Thank you for popping by. I will speak to you again soon. Bye for now.